Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are in Osiris, New Dawn, and I'm actually kind of reworking an area. So, well, let me back up here, and so what I did, try and get the reticle here out of the way. What I did was move from I want to call it the original base site, but it's actually the second base site. So the first base site was Osiris 1, which was the base that was that the game missions directed you to. It was a derelict base, and as you find out, you can't do anything with it. You can't repair it. You can't do diddly squat with it. So I backed off a bit. I found a nice flat area that I thought was neat, and built a base there. And that was kind of stupid because a giant worm lives there. So pretty much every time I turned around, I was getting assaulted by the worm. I relocated again. As I had mentioned, I saved everyone the agony of watching that. But I did come up with what I think is a pretty neat base. So the base is kind of a star pattern on the bottom, not the typical just quad area like you see on the top floor there. But anyway, so the bottom is a little bit different. It was every other square on the habitat area was a coupler. And it didn't work out entirely as planned. What I found out was that the habitats actually fit together really well. The problem is you can't actually couple them in threes. So even though they will go together as a triangular shape, you can't get the two outer ones to couple. So whichever one you're coupling them to is what will happen, and then that's the end of it. So anyway, what I ended up doing is making that 6 pattern all the way around. So 1 in the center and 6 around the outside. And then I ended up kind of taking off a bit. So the center habitat area became a 2nd floor and then a 3rd floor, as you can see in front. So the middle floor was all windows except for the quads, right underneath the cardinals that you see the biodomes in. And I put the amenities in there, like the oxygen generator, the water reclaimer, and the climate control. So pretty much every habitat here has those items. Whether they're needed or not, I don't know, but what the heck, right? Then the top floor became the biodomes. So it's all solid walls, and the 3 amenities. I think I've got a chemistry table on that top floor, and then everything else is lockers. Nothing in those lockers yet, but it was for, I figured, foodstuffs and that sort of thing. And I got soil in all of the smart bins, but I have not actually attempted to plant anything. So that was the plan, to eventually play with the planting. Right now, with hunger and stuff, pretty much arrested, then I don't have to worry about that, because I've got enough food from the aliens that that I don't need to worry about that. So sorry about my phone ringing there. So 2nd floor, nothing much, just a connector, and then the 3rd floor is yet another connector for the biodomes there at the top. Now I put a solid roof on. I experimented and found that the solid roof, actually, it does say that you can build on it. So I built the electrodome on top of that. Now the electrodome is designed, as you can see, to be somewhat spherical, based on its base. So the half sphere is literally parallel with its base. So as you can see, this dome here is actually looping in a little bit, but it still worked out pretty well. So the nice thing about it is that dome is just slightly off center, which is just the nature of the way they designed it. So I got the laboratory down. The two depositories here, Lab Main 1 and Lab Main 2, are right now empty. What I want to do is get the spattering of all of the parts and pieces that you would need to actually build the stuff like the ships, the little assistants, you know, everything there. And I have not yet gathered all that. I have all the materials. So the project really was the jumping back and forth between the old base and this base, the 847 times, to actually collect everything, tear that base down, bring all the parts and pieces over here. I also went totally OCD and I sorted everything. So everything is now in its own locker. The only dual purpose lockers were the precious metals, which really the rare metals, which you technically can't get here. So it's things like mercury and nickel, which I don't think either one of those actually has a purpose in the game yet, but they do exist. So tungsten you can use, also extremely rare, not available on this world. None of those three are available on this world. You have to go elsewhere to get it. Built the lab here. So I want to get all the parts and materials into one of those lockers, two depositories rather, so you have all the materials close at hand. So over here was the gas storage area. So there was 4 hydrogens, a nitrogen, and an oxygen. So obviously the hydrogen and oxygen were to make water. I do have 2 water tanks over on the other side of the base, right outside the main entrance. So that was intentional. I did want water over there so you could easily replenish. There's also 2 hydrazine tanks. Now hydrazine is made from hydrogen and nitrogen. So it is still a liquid. You can store it in your glass containers. And all of your vehicles, so I have a vehicle here, and you can't really see it, but it's on the other side of the base. So the spaceship, which is hiding over yonder. So both those vehicles take hydrazine. So I wanted a way to make hydrazine. So what I thought here was I wanted to put a platform down so I could put tanks up. Now the tanks here are not entirely symmetrical where they're supposed to be. So what I wanted to do is kind of change the area. The 4 hydrogens are on the back side there. I kind of was thinking about this could be like a garage kind of a thing. So it was, you know, where to make everything. So what I was thinking is I would put the water creation down one side, the hydrazine creation down the other side, and then have a stack of hydrazine tanks, probably 4, I think, in the back of the proverbial garage. But to do that, I would have to move all of these and then construct around it. I literally want to be able to drive this guy right straight into it. So I don't think it will be covered, although it could be. I don't think it would be a problem. Definitely, you know, am learning as I go along here. This was just the chemistry station here that was actually going to be used for the creation. So what I've been doing here is pulling the oxygen out of the tank. Then I will destroy the tank, take the tank apart, and then create another tank up here in the front. but I don't want to waste the oxygen because I trekked halfway across the universe to find a geyser for oxygen, filled up my tanks, and then trekked back. So I don't want to lose this oxygen. If you destroy the tank with it full, it just, boom, it's gone. Trivia that I have learned as I went along, whether it be a liquid tank or the gaseous tank, it will take 12. And what I mean by 12 is, so you can see I'm filling barrels here. So 12 barrels, which is 100 units, whatever a unit is. I'm calling them units. I don't know what the game calls them. So 12 barrels. A gaseous tank can hold 1,200. So 12 barrels worth of whatever. So whatever gas that you happen to have, in the tank. And the same is true with liquids. So the liquid tanks, they also hold 12 containers, but because the containers are 50s rather than hundreds, then it actually works out to 600 that you can store in there. So these are all my 12. So as you can see, the tank here is empty now. So in this case, destroy, yes. So tab, I am using the armored floor 2. And one of the things I kind of want to do, and I need to figure out, so we're going to cancel. It's the upright piece, which may be the wall. Here we go. So we've got two different armored walls. I kind of prefer that one. So the reason I'm doing that, so what I'm going to do here is they really got to work on this fucking game. So whenever you're constructing, you can't actually use your jetpack, and because your character can't actually walk over anything, then I'm kind of stuck out here. So I suppose ideally I could put windows in. So I guess the corners here, yeah, so why don't I do that? So escape, number 5 is my little gun thing. So destroy, yes, destroy, yes. So we'll do the corners in the regular armor. This will be kind of the entrance here. Tab, and then the industrial wall windowed is what I used previously. I do have glass. Let's see. And what I don't really know is how far back this will go. I would like to just go the length of the building here. this is pretty much some of the building here, but what I'm going to do is do one more, and then so escape, tab, go back to the flooring, there we go. So what I'm hoping is I can stack the 3 tanks down each side. The 3 gas tanks, that is, down each side. And then the liquid tanks will be somewhere else. Hopefully on the end. I'm gonna probably end up running out of the parts I need here. Yep, just ran out. Damn it. So steel and rubber. I actually do have. I call them extras. So let's see what my, and I ran out of steel. Rubber, steel, and copper was the. Let me sprint over here. So I put, oops, there. My spares locker here. So I have a lot of steel that was extras. Excuse me. Alright, so let me, I'll dump. I took too many barrels. I did the, the global take all to get them into the inventory quickly. So inside, this place is kind of crazy. Sorry. Alright. If they fix nothing else in this game but can make your character walk correctly, so, auto moving around shit that's on the way, I would be thrilled. Rubber, glass, rubber. So I do perhaps need some more glass. So the tanks are, if I remember correctly, copper, steel, and rubber. So I should have enough to make the tank. Alright. Alright. back to building here. All right. Push the right button. So we were building a wall, which goes right there. I don't know if I have enough height here. I tend to, just for sake of, structural, obviously the game doesn't worry about structures and stuff like that in this way, but I'm going to go ahead and build just so it looks like it's there. I'll probably go ahead and do that on the front as well. Alright, so that is the side, the one side. And then I just have to figure out how I'm going to do the rest of it. So there you go, the wonky walking. It can't even walk between tanks. It just hangs there. I try to be patient when it comes to, yes, this is a beta game. This is an early look game. Okay, understood. But there are certain basic things that I personally think are mandatory before you release your game to the public. Making your characters walk, I think, is the requirement. If you need to do things along the way, see, I don't know if I can crouch or anything. No, none of those controls actually function. See, what I'm trying to do is get the put the no, not gonna do it. It might if I don't know, maybe it will. Maybe not. Oh well. Have to live with it. Basic movement of the character, avatar, whatever they're calling it, I think, is a mandatory function. So until you can do that, absolutely nothing else matters. That to me is a game functionality issue. If the game does not function in basic ways, it is not ready for public release. These are gas tanks. Well, I was afraid of that. So the upside is that they lock in according to the framework. The downside is that you may end up with a little bit more room than you wanted. Which is to say, room around them than you wanted. The other thing that would be kind of cool is to have like doors, and there aren't any doors. So If I follow the logic through here, I want to put 2 tanks. I cannot put another tank there, which means the next tank is going to go on this rung, which means the 3rd tank would go on this rung. Which means I need one more thing out here. Alright, so we're destroying that one, destroying that one, and destroying that one. Destroying that one. So, here's the wall. The first thing I want to do is get this one down. Down there. And I'm actually going to nuke that one. But let me get. There we go. So this becomes my corner. So those are the window pieces that so I need to nuke this this one here. Yes. And that one. Yes. So I need that one there. And then the windows, which are this one. Yes, that is. There. Okay, so a bit bigger than intended, but still works. Totally going to the ground back here, which may severely affect putting tanks on the ground back here. Maybe not too much. Okay, so my theory is that I can put a liquid tank sideways on this, and I should be fine, I think. So I think the 4 wide here is plenty. So I need to go back to my armored wall, which will be here. Yeah, this may be a problem here. Don't know. Alright. Now we are into the flooring. just letting me put these in. Glad for that. Gonna run into the tanks here, so I don't think I can put that next one on. I don't think it's gonna let me do it. And I'm standing in the way of this one, so. So I only have 2 hydrazine tanks forward. So I will definitely need to get... so my intention is to put more hydrazine tanks back here. Wow, it actually let me do that. So that was a surprise. Alright, so... If I'm being intelligent, then I would put a door back here. Does it change? Well, I'm gonna... There was part of me that was gonna discover there, but I don't think I will discover. I think I'll just make it happen. The question is that rotated on the outside. No. Yep, of course. Why would I be able to walk through a door? What was I thinking? Not too bad. I don't know if it's going to let me build the tanks back here like I want, but I may have to just offset them forward a little bit. I didn't want to do that, but as they say, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. Alright. So, this is, was an oxygen tank. So it will be oxygen main. So main is all of the materials apparatus right here at the main base. So oxygen main is the storage at the main base here. Okay, so now we're gonna start transferring all of this stuff back in here. And once I do that, then I'll have the tanks, and I can use the barrels, as they're called, to down just a little bit so we can see as we fill. Makes it a little less boring. This is kind of the tedious part of building and getting everything set up how you want it. And then of course, as dare I say, the vision change, you know, as you discover things and build and then say, oh, well, that's not really what I wanted now that I've got this built here. So, of course, these tanks were here before the laboratory was here. So even though it's approximately what I concept-wise was approximately what I ended up with here, building the garage and everything obviously changed things a little bit. So building the garage means some alteration of the original design plan, which is really what this particular segment is all about. Even though it is kind of boring, admittedly, just watching somebody build may or may not be the most exciting thing you've ever done. More tanks. Sorry, barrels. 2 more barrels. 1 more barrel. And then all full. And then we start the process over with the hydrogen. So in this case, G to pull the hydrogen out. I really wish there was a way to just move things. That would be really good. Most of these, kind of sandbox games, there's no way to do that. Wish there was, because it would definitely save a whole lot of energy and effort. Not sure a 12 times, now granted, it's more of a patience issue rather than a realism issue, because obviously these barrels being the size they are, and the tanks being the size that they are, then it's silly to imagine that 12 barrels are going to fill this tank in front of me. So it was more this thing of, what would be realistic? 120? But, how many players would actually fill up one of these tanks if that was truly the case, because that would just be a little too monotonous. 12 is pretty monotonous. But, alright, last barrel. The last barrel for this evolution. And because I can't put the tank there, let me put it there. This would be kind of cool if you could stack these tanks or do the end-to-end thing, but nope, can't do that. And I might as well go ahead and put the last of the 3 tanks for this side in place. there. So the whole reason for building this is, I mean, totally OCD thing, but I like having everything lined up. And when you're putting it on the ground, it's kind of a random grid. I like the fact that there aren't major constraints, but I really wish. And it doesn't do too bad. You can see these aren't, totally hidden. Well, yes, they are. Sorry. Never mind. I'll just not speak that one. I like the fact that you have some flexibility when you're building. But the whole reason for this garage ultimately was because I want everything to be lined up perfectly, as a matter of fact. So, all right. So we'll name this. Hydrogen main 01, and then this one becomes hydrogen main 02. Alright, and then we start turn that off, and then F, and the process in reverse. So the building in this game actually is very economical. I've been pleasantly surprised. The flooring, for example, is like 2 steel and 1 rubber. So with a stack, which of course is 50s, as you can see here, 50s. You can go quite a ways. It is kind of nice to be able to build things with reasonable economy. It is a challenge from the fact that you do have to find all of these things. Rubber was a bear to find, which is actually, it's a derivative. So you have to find certain plants and then, do the thing and then convert it, basically. So it's a challenge. Glass was easy. You pick up sand, you throw it in the furnace, and poof, there's the glass. So that part was reasonable. Steel is, I think, aluminum, iron, and magnesium. So it's a bit pricey. And considering how much steel you go through, you spend a boatload of time making all of these components that you're going to use for other things. But once you have spent that time, invested that time, then you pretty much have the economy on your side, because 2 steel for a wall, these walls out here, 2 steel, which not a bad thing, I don't think. Almost done. 3 more barrels? 2 more barrels. Oops. All right, 100%. And then we turn around and start again. So I wish there were medium-sized barrels. That were like, 4 of the regular barrels. Maybe a little harder to haul around and everything, but obviously much heavier, that kind of thing. But it would be a lot more practical from the perspective of when you're really trying to fill up these tanks. And you're having to haul 12 barrels back and forth, especially when you're doing it on the scale that I'm doing it, with the pre-planning, the pre-staging. So I've got enough that I can make 24 hydrazine and 24 water with the supplies I have on hand, which is quite a bit. That's a lot of adventuring. Certainly not infinite. And then all of the stores of the whatever you carry with you. And I've got well, maybe I don't. I think I dumped most of the water into the tanks when I was filling the tanks and haven't refilled. I should have gone out to the front to do this so you can actually watch everything that's going on. We should be at 75%. A little less boring when you can actually see what's going on and happening. So that the second one disappeared, so that and then destroy. Yes. All right. All right. So this is my my other hydrogen tank. So I'll move all of it in there. So again, a little bit boring in the process, but in the end, having a neat little garage thing, service bay or whatever we want to call it for the vehicles. I have no idea if I can land the spacecraft on top of this barn. So ideally what I'd like to do is have stairs going up to the top, and I don't know if I can do that or not. Thankfully, they don't bother me often. So I've been very happy with this new location. There really are not an abundance of the aliens here. So far those NARs, or whatever they're calling them, Nat, are the only things I have encountered here, and they are not very plentiful at all. I want to get the turrets up and running. I haven't done that yet. Last of the barrels for this tank. Alright. So actually a pretty good sized space. So the question is, can I put so what I want to do is put 4 hydrazine tanks. Gonna let me do that. That it might let me do though. I like that location. So let's try. If it'll let me put them all the way across the back there. I'm hoping it will. No, I don't think it's going to. And I think that's a bit farther forward than the other one is. I wish there were a terrain editor. Of course. So this is going to really just have to be parallel because it wants to be in the center of this, and with the terrain there, and of course you can't edit the terrain in any way that I'm aware of. At least I don't think you can. Yeah. So it's wanting to align with those. So I guess so we'll destroy this tank and move it forward. Then the real question is, do I put how do I orient them? So do I orient them like this? And technically I can still walk, can I? Maybe, maybe not. And I walk through. Yeah. This side here, so there's the hydrogen tank there. And the next hydrogen tank will be on that one. I don't know if it'll let me build it or not. Ah, I'm out of parts. Out of pieces. Maybe that's a good thing, because I'm right about an hour. So probably a good place to stop. So, thank you for joining me. This is Kenty Tiger signing off, and we'll see you next time.